And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Let's take a look at flying weather for Friday morning. A lot of marginal VFR here, Bering Sea, Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula, right up across Bristol Bay into the southwest interior. IFR in a band here, just in the northern edge of the marginal VFR zone there, almost getting to Nunivak Island and then to the north. Good VFR, St. Lawrence Island into the Chukchi Sea. Most of the interior VFR, some IFR there for the western north slope. And marginal VFR covering the Gulf of Alaska here, kind of sliding into the central and southern panhandle areas. And taking a look at the afternoon, we'll see this kind of retreats back to the west a little bit here. So looking at some marginal VFR around Prince of Wales Island, possibly over toward Metlakatla. Otherwise good VFR all the way up to Yakutat and along the coast range here. Prince William Sound though, marginal VFR and southern Kenai Peninsula and along the Alaska Range, northern Susitna Valley, northern Copper River Basin, marginal. And a lot of VFR as you head north. Still looking at some lower conditions here for the western north slope. And the Bering Sea, not all that bad. A lot of marginal VFR all the way down to the Aleutians and breaking out a little bit from the morning hours here over northern Bristol Bay, but still quite an area over the southwest interior in the Yukon River. And for Saturday morning, organized band of IFR pushing in with the next front into the western Aleutians here in the southwest Bering Sea. Otherwise, marginal VFR prevails south of St. Matthew Island to the Aleutians, eastward here right into Kodiak Island, western Alaska Range area on up into the central interior areas. And that unending zone of IFR there for the north slope. Otherwise, still marginal over the southern southeast coast with VFR up into the southeastern Copper River Basin. And then for the Saturday afternoon time frame, you can see quite an improvement here going on. Just VFR across the Gulf of Alaska into the Panhandle, much of the interior. Looking at some marginal VFR here from western Cook Inlet right up to the lower Yukon River Valley in toward eastern Norton Sound. Good VFR here over from the Chukchi Sea down across the Bering Sea. In fact, easier to just look at the marginal VFR areas, which just covers Adak and Atka, northwestward to some IFR over the western Bering. And for passes, Anatuvik and Adigan, marginal VFR for the day tomorrow, a split again. Anatuvik looks marginal, and then hopefully Adigan far enough to the east that it'll be VFR. And for Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR and pretty marginal conditions for rainy as well, about the same for windy. And also Isabel and Mentasta looking pretty marginal for the day on Friday. Portage and Tanita as well, but Chilkoot and White, VFR. And for the freezing levels here at the surface, up to around Adak and Atka, south of the eastern Aleutians, up the east side of Kodiak Island, across the Gulf, and then down just on the western part of Prince of Wales Island. And from there, going to icing. We've got areas of light to isolated moderate icing here. Actually from the northern Seward Peninsula around Kotzebue Sound, the Kobuk Valley, southeastward, all the way down to south central Alaska, Kenai Peninsula. And then the next zone with that next front starting to slip on in, but not quite making it to Shimmy and Attu. Icing free elsewhere. And for the jet stream, 33,000 foot wind flow chart here, just the Pacific jet barely getting onto the picture down here. Otherwise, Gulf of Alaska and just about all of interior Alaska and the Bering Sea looking at pretty light variable wind flow. Stronger northwest winds here in the backside of this trough, low center there, southwest of Nunivak Island, 85 to 95 knots there coming down across Adak Island. 9,000 feet, lighter winds, about 35 knots here across the central Aleutians. Otherwise pretty light over the interior here, kind of southerly winds, maybe 25 knots or so. Up and becoming southeast across the Kobuk Valley. Stronger winds though for the central western Arctic coast areas there, about 35 knots. And coming down to 3,000 feet, again, Gulf of Alaska, Kodiak Island, Bristol Bay eastward across the Gulf into the Panhandle, into the interior here, pretty light winds. More significant winds, much more significant winds here along the Arctic coast, 35 to as high as 50 knots there, blowing right across Point Lay and possibly Wainwright. Otherwise, light winds for the Bering Sea here. And westerlies turn north 35 knots across the central Aleutians. See much stronger winds with obviously a stronger system there just coming onto the chart. Turbulence-wise, look for considerable moderate turbulence here up to the north interior, eastern Brooks Range down into the Kobuk-Koyukuk valleys, along the Alaska Range into the Kuskokwim Valley, and from the eastern Aleutians to Adak and Atka.